Hey guys, it's Jenna Horton.
And Olivia Bondi.
Welcome back to It's Kind of a Big Deal. We're recording episode 2 today, and we're so happy to have you guys here. We really appreciate all the support. We launched our first episode last week, and we've been overwhelmed with the support from everybody, all the likes, shares, comments. Thank you guys so much.
We're excited to bring to you guys episode 2. We had a hard time deciding today what we wanted to chat about. Jenna and I were speaking prior to the podcast, just about kind of difficult situations that we get ourselves into in this life and tools that we use to constantly coach ourselves through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Today we're talking about some personal things, but these tools that we use work between business and personal, all aspects of life.
I actually can't remember. Oh, I know where I got the diving board tool.
Okay.
From Esther Perel.
Right,
Which,
one of your favorite podcasts.
Like, I'm obsessed. She's my favorite podcast. If you have to pay for her podcast now for certain episodes, but it's worth like the $6.99 a month or whatever it is. Right. So she's a therapist, and she does, there's a masterclass that she has, but she does a ton of like interviews with people, like one-time off therapy podcasts. And I listen to them and I get all sorts of tools. The diving board one is one that we've shared with countless people now, and one that we use probably every single day.
Yes.
So I don't know if you want to share a little bit about the diving board tool and different scenarios that it helps you in this life.
Yeah, I mean, you're the one who told me about this tool, and like you said, I use it every day as well. So I guess the diving board is just like you're standing on the end of the diving board, you have a decision that you need to make, or you have something that you want to do, and you're standing there. You might be scared to do so, you might be overthinking the decision that you need to make, or the call that you need to make, whatever it might be, and you're just sitting and sitting and sitting.
And you're waiting to be ready. Like, I literally picture myself at the Moortown Arena, like when I was a kid, on the really tall diving board, and I'm like, everyone's looking at you, and you're like, jump, but you're never ever.
You're kind of cold, a little shaky.
You're
like,
never gonna feel ready.
Right, exactly. And so you just got to do it.
Yeah.
And then when you jump, you're so excited and you feel so good, and then you're just like, here we go, and I did it. And why was I overthinking it? It was not as bad as I expected.
Yeah, like you instantly start to feel better. Like last week, an agent called me for some advice, and they were like, oh, like I have to call this person, and it was like a weird client interaction,
right?
Like kind of overstepping. Someone didn't really know how the process works, which we run into a lot. And they were like, I have to call this agent, and I'm so worried, and I gave them like the diving board theory, and then they texted me and were like, oh my gosh, like you were so right. I felt better immediately once I started that conversation, because this person, you know, wasn't nearly as upset or difficult to speak to as I anticipated. So then all of these anxieties that we build up kind of start to strip away as soon as you make that jump off the diving board, make the phone call, you know, do whatever you have to do that you're avoiding.
Yeah, it's almost never as bad as we expect it to be, because we're just getting our own head and we're thinking about all of these things, and it's almost never as bad. And even if it does go bad, I feel like just making the decision, just doing the thing, it's going to be bad whether you do it today or tomorrow. So just do it. And then you're not wasting your time and your energy stressing about the situation.
Yeah, and I think that kind of leads well into our next tool as well. Yeah. Because things are never as bad as we anticipate them being. So another strategy, and I don't know where we got this one from.
I think just therapy. That's something we kind of wanted to mention here as well, is that like we're both very open with all of our friends, family, clients, anybody in our life. Like we're both in therapy, and so grateful for the opportunity to do so. Like
and grow and learn and learn from people who are literally experts in these tools for managing our lives when they do get stressful. Because when you do start to, you know, layer on things and responsibilities, and whether you're starting a business, all of these things can really start to compound into your life, and having the right tools in your tool belt to manage them is really important.
Yeah, and it's important to the people in our lives that we know how to manage ourselves, so that we can then be showing up for the best way that we can for other people.
Yeah, for the people that we care about. And
exactly. And our clients and anybody in our life, like they deserve the best version of ourselves. And Olivia and I go to the gym together almost every day. And I think that that's the same idea. Like we go to the gym to work on our bodies, and then we're each in therapy as well to work on our minds.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like really, it feels good as well when somebody does start to rely on you for these types of things. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like whether that's someone in your life, like someone that's looks up to you as a mentor that reaches out to you and is like, hey, this is the situation that I'm going through. Like, you know, how can I work through this?
Yeah, just this morning, I texted Olivia. I was like, good morning. What's your schedule like today? I'm feeling anxious. I'd love to chat with you about some things before we do our podcast. And then we sat down and had a chat for 5 minutes. And I just know that I can lean on Olivia because she betters herself and goes to therapy. And then she's showing up as a good support for me.
Yeah, and even if I don't have the answers, like sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to say in this situation, but we can always role play through it.
Yeah.
And you know, try and figure out what the best plan of attack is to get in the right mindset to start your day.
Yeah.
So the next strategy we're going to talk about is what we call the worst case scenario strategy. So when you're going through a situation, oftentimes like you're laying in bed at night and you're thinking about like whatever's on your agenda for the next day, and you're thinking about like, you know, spiraling in your mind. This is how they're going to respond. This is what's going to happen. This is what I'm going to have to do. This is the outcome. And one thing that we have found very helpful is instead of just thinking in circles about like what the outcome of your problem is going to be, actually really go there and say like, okay, what is the worst possible situation that could come out of this tomorrow?
Yeah. And then how am I going to handle that?
And how am I going to handle that? And am I able to handle that? What are the steps that I'm going to take to handle that? What types of supports do I need to get through that? And it gives you, or it gives me at least, peace of mind to know that like, okay, worst case scenario, like an example that I called Jen about multiple times, unfortunately, in this life, is like when a tenant stops paying rent. And in this day and age, the LTB, Landlord Tenant Board, it's a very long process to get rid of a tenant, and it can be very stressful as a landlord financially, emotionally, physically, to kind of combat these issues that you run into and these risks that are related to being in the business. So I'll call Jenna and I'm like, hey, so-and-so stopped paying their rent. And what would you say to me in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario is they're stopping paying the rent. Okay, well then we're going to be months probably without rent, and before we can get them evicted and go through the landlord tenant board for all of that. And it's going to be okay. Like, we know that when we make these investments, we have to run the numbers tight and run the numbers as if we're going to have a certain level of vacancy, and we're prepared for this.
Yeah.
So that's the thing too, even prior to making that investment, we've already played the worst case scenario game. Okay, worst case scenario, the furnace breaks, how am I paying for that? Worst case scenario, the tenant doesn't pay the rent, how am I paying for that? So we're running these numbers with these things in mind, because things happen. Like, especially when it comes to rental property. So
worst case scenario, so-and-so is going to be there for the next six to 8 months, probably.
Unfortunately.
To get an eviction, do I have the funds to hold that vacancy for that time? If I don't have the funds on hand, where am I going to pull those funds from? Whether that, you know, unfortunately for some people could be like a line of credit or something like that, to make sure that the bills are still paid and you're able to maintain that investment. And then you can go to sleep at night knowing, okay, worst case scenario, I can handle this. And best case scenario, they come up with the cash next week. And they're just a week late and they pay you. And then you can go to sleep at night and not spiral.
About all these things.
So those are two tools that work great for us and that we use all the time.
Every day.
I'm sure there will be a lot more episodes like this just on mindset and mental health. And
I guess in adding to that, at the end there you mentioned best case scenario, and that's kind of a new thing for us. I think I saw it on Instagram last week or something, and we just were discussing this. So we always kind of play worst case scenario, and then I think in addition to that too, doing the worst case scenario, and then even when we run into worst case scenario, it's also like building that like mental toughness that, like, you know what, I have been in the worst case scenario before, and every time I get through this, I'm building these skills and putting these things into my tool belt and knowing I can do this. So then when another situation comes up, it's like, you know what, I got past this, I got over this, and I can do it again. So you're just showing up for yourself, and that's building strength. So I love that about the worst case scenario, but it's also really nice. So our mind tends to go in a negative way. Like, our mind is just trained, unfortunately, to just go negative. And so I think, like, doing the reverse of that and showing up positively for yourself. Like, sure, I can focus on what's the worst case scenario is, and I know that I can prepare myself for that, but then let's also flip it. And what could be the best case scenario? Okay, I make this investment, and then what does that look like best case? Or I make this decision, or I make this move, whatever it's going to be in your life, and how can that turn out in the best way possible? Because training our brain to think in a positive way is such a powerful tool.
Oh, you know what's a great tool that I just thought of is Kelly Sitter told you this, and it's something that's definitely stuck with me, is anxiety is also, if you reprogram that into thinking about excitement. Like when you're feeling anxious about something, if you kind of like switch that best case scenario and say like, am I feeling anxious or am I excited?
Yeah, and you can just trick your brain.
You can literally trick your brain into being excited about something that you're anxious about because just reworking our mindset is really important into making sure that you're the best. I kind of think back to like being a kid and like you're at track and field or whatever and you're ready for a race and you're like nervous per se, but then if you just told yourself that you were excited, like, oh my God, I'm so excited to run this race. I'm here with my friends, it's gonna be great. Like switching those nerves in your belly and those butterflies in your belly and just telling yourself that that's excitement, not anxiety. Yeah, same with like a first date.
Yes.
Like before you're going on a first date, you're like, I'm so nervous. And it's like, wait, am I actually excited about like how this could go?
Yeah, the potential that this has.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, that's a simple
so that is all for this week. We're going to have some guests on for sure. We've been chatting with some people.
Networking within the community.
And we're really excited about that.
Yeah, thanks so much guys for showing up. And
have
we'll
a great
see
week.
You again next week.
Okay.